I'm going to call Nathan and Manan. And I will also call our panelist, Daniel Muller, who was expected to be with us, but unfortunately, we are with him. We are wishing him to recover very soon because he got COVID positive. So he couldn't join us today. Take a seat. I'm not going to introduce them because you already saw them several times. My name is Salim, as she mentioned. I'm a Chief Innovation Officer. And I have here Nathan, who has been working for these years in serving different clients, different industries. I have Manan, who have seen already what he mentioned about leadership. So when it comes to leadership, you are building people. The topic of decentralization is going to more focus on the technology and processes. This will allow us to contain and combine the puzzle, how we can make business. So, Nathan, can you talk more about yourself? Because I believe Manan, everybody knows about him, but can you tell us more about you? So, can keep going? Thank you.
Thanks, Salim. So, I am actually a tax professional. I've been doing taxation since 2005. I'm an Indian chartered accountant, qualified in 2002. So, about 20 years is something that I have spent in this consulting industry, and so I would say 20 and counting. But blockchain is something which is a different animal. It will be tamed in future, but how that will happen, when, what shape and form, that we'll see.
Understand. So I think we can go with the first question related to how decentralization itself, how would you define it, Manan, today, based on your cross-industry experience?
Decentralization is about, in a very simple and a plain words, is about distributing the control from one central agency to multiple node holders on a very simple and a plain language. The entire thought process revolves around to be able to grow ourselves beyond the regulatory control around the central bank and implement the financial institutions at large without the need of central bank. That's what decentralization in a trust is all about. Obviously, there are a lot of positives and negatives around it, which obviously I believe that we will be discussing.
100%. How do you see this adoption is going on? Because you have been in the industry and you have been working with, based on what you just explained to us a while ago, you have been building people to remain with you for long. So now, if it's come to blockchain, it's more volatile and more expanding. How it's been early adopted by the different industries that you are currently working?
So I believe decentralization or even the blockchain as a technology is in a very nascent stage still. Though it has been there in the market for a very long time, but it is still in a very baby steps that they are taking. It has the potential to create some amazing and tremendous changes in the financial world that the technology can do. Like if I take a small example, last or few years back, I would say somewhere in 2019, two of the international banks tried to implement blockchain using the SWIFT network. And the entire transaction would happen within seconds instead of days. So that has the power to change that. And today, earlier in the day, Pradeep mentioned that the transactions can happen real time, the settlements can happen real time. So there's a huge scope in terms of implementing the blockchain. The smart contracts cannot go wrong. The blocking layer can prevent the frauds and the crimes around it. So there's a huge potential to grow, but it is still to be in a more mature stage before we start using it on a more formal basis.
Okay, now with this perspective, which is the one that Manan has mentioned, based on your clients' range that you are dealing with, how do you see them coming into play blockchain itself?
So basically, when I first saw the topic, it said decentralization is a big setback for blockchain. I first thought there is a typo. Because the inherent characteristic of a blockchain is decentralization. So, if I can draw a corollary, it is like asking the question, is eating food bad for health?
I think the answer to this question.
You need food, but where the challenge is coming, the similar challenges that you see here. What to eat, when to eat, how much to eat, and what is the situation. We draw the same examples in the blockchain here. You need decentralization because that is the inherent characteristic. There are different node points which have, three different blocks. We will have a ledger which is different from the traditional one where it's maintained by a central agency and that can be changed. There can be difference in numbers, there can be a fraud, or there is a single point controlling it. Here all three will have a separate ledger. It will tally pi to pi. Okay. We would know what's there with each of us. We have the power to control it with a yes or a no.
Okay.
Right? If all three of us give it away, I don't think it will be called a blockchain. It will be something else. So there is an inherent characteristic which is already there.
100%. So now we take this move forward, because if you talk about decentralization as the core part of blockchain, then there is a new norm of defining the logic behind the blockchain itself. As Nathan mentioned, you are making a lot of implementations. How they are today adopted with the logic that he's mentioning about an enterprise-based control environment, a more decentralized environment, where every information, data, processes, transactions are all within the same network. How do you see this?
If we see at large, as Nathan has correctly mentioned, that we have to define how much to eat, when to eat, where to eat, what to eat. So who will control that? So that is the biggest question out here. And I believe personally, given the tremendous the benefits that blockchain can implement, obviously before you go on a positive side, there will always be a negative side of it. So one has to put certain regulations into place before we put it into a formal economy. Otherwise, it would be a complete chaos out there. Like today, what is happening with the crypto? People are afraid to invest. People are not comfortable saying that, okay, this might be a black market thing, this might be something illegal tender, this might not go long run, there's a volatility attached to it.
Just 1 minute. Do your clients see the same view, like the volatility side of a case of Bitcoin becoming a very high risk? Because you are also working on taxation, by the way.
So for Bitcoins, for the first time, at least the Indian government has now come out in the open and said, we will tax it in case you have a profit. So loss belongs to you. But if you have a profit, we will tax it.
So in one side you say it's a private. On the other side you say if you use it, you're going to be taxed this way.
If you use it and make profit. If you use it and make loss, that still belongs to you.
No,
they still do not accept it as a tax.
Now the case, how do you know that you make profit?
So this is where the peculiarity of this is, because no one has a certainty where this is moving to. Right?
Okay.
But I'll pull your horses back and get back to the topic.
Okay, sure. No, it's very interesting for that part, because you are now mentioning about an authority. So now, if you talk about authority, we are listening a lot about the CBDC. They are coming up with their own logic of adopting blockchain. And we are seeing the other control of tech companies. They are controlling all the information we are having. And we have seen also the Web 3.0. the wallet. You have seen what's happened in Ukraine and Russia. So a lot of people have been banned using the network itself. So now, how do you see today, in specific to India, because they are now declaring that next year they will be having their own TBDC, and we are seeing as well the euro being introduced. So can we get information about, in specific to this, because it is a silent topic about the decentralization, how it's happening?
Yes, so it will catch up. Where the challenges are coming and what kind of questions are basically coming to us is people are first and foremost a lot worried about security. If you are within that blockchain, it is super secure. But there are so many private blockchains. Sitting outside, you don't know which one to pick. Maybe I'll ask you a question. You know about crypto, you say about crypto. Give me two cryptos, names, which you can put your hand on and say, I buy this looks secure to me. This looks, my money will not win. Ethereum. The moment anybody talks about blockchain, the first thing that goes to the mind is crypto. Okay. Right? Yeah. And the moment you think crypto, two things go into your mind. I will buy, but I don't know which one to buy.
How you trust it?
How do you trust it? Moment you start looking into the second question, which one, you will get a few questions for yourself to answer. Okay. What is the scalability of this Bitcoin or this blockchain? Because right now it's private, block by block. Can it scale? That scaling will depend upon who all are there at the moment. How many people are there? Can you trust everybody who's there in the blockchain right now?
This is exactly where the structure of the network itself has to be defined, because as we discussed about the three layers, there is decentralization, there is centralization, there is distribution. So Moulana, I think you already have been witnessing this, how you see this, because what he referred to is where the trust has to be managed between the entities.
So see, today, if I talk about this specifically for the Indian subcontinent, until a regulator doesn't take a decision into it and don't come up with a clear guidelines, that trust will not build up. Like if I take a journey 5 years or 7 years back, when a lot of startups came up with a wallet concept, people were not trusting wallets onto it. Why? Because they were not confident that my money is secured in that wallet. What happens if the company goes down? What happens if someone is stolen it? What happens if there's a fraud into it? So who will be liable to it? Now with the CBDC coming in picture, they know there's someone who is liable for it. I can go to that person, raise my dispute, I will get my money back. Or there's some fraud which preventions can happen. So CBDC is it's a way forward into the entire digital currency space. Like the moment India comes up with the thought process, all the who's and who's of the world will start implementing it. Be it US, UK, or even Dubai for that matter, will start following what the others are doing into the space, and that's how the trust will be built up, and that's how the entire piece would be a successful implementation.
We go back to that word, digital trust.
Yeah. There is a concept which is going to come into play. The trust of the new norm of identity is called zero knowledge proof. It's mean today if I have to have any one of it on a given network, then I need to provide my details, who I am, my credit history, and every information. So imagine a scenario where I am, let's say I'm inside India, and I go to any website, I want to make a loan. Today, what's really happening to identify the people within that exercise itself? How India is ready, as an example, for other countries, in terms of identity, because trust cannot happen between participants. It's also going to happen with the customers, whether I trust the customer, because I am an entity. How today India is ready in terms of identity.
Take that first because I think it's closer to Philippines.
So if I talk about the entire identity that India has created, today India has one of the most advanced payment systems in the world. With UPI, Unified Payment Interface. Every bank account holder has a virtual ID linked to his bank account, through which he can make an instant payment 24/7. And this has been implemented in the last 4 to 5 years. In the last 4 to 5 years, from zero to today, every month we are processing over 400 crore worth of 400 crore transactions, which is like in terms of Indian rupees, which is worth 1.5 lakh crores. And Indian government target is to process a billion transactions a day. Now, so in terms of infrastructure, in terms of trust, in terms of educating people, India has already done that. So bringing a digital currency will just add to that layer of it, so that today I talk about UPI or a lot of financial inclusion initiatives. They need bank account at the back end. But with CBDC in picture, you might not need a bank account. So the true financial inclusion can happen on the ground.
100%.
So this is where.
But this identity is not only for end users. It has to be also applied on entities, on companies. So,
Absolutely, and that is where the digital trust that we are talking about will happen. Because right now, even when you're going in and buying a vehicle, you are placing a reliance on a model, right? And how you're placing the reliance is by looking at the history, talking to people, asking questions about uncertainty, right? People to get trust do not ask questions on certainty. They ask questions on uncertainty. You ask people, did you have a bad example? Right? It's the mindset. We have stopped asking questions, share good experience. They have maybe done on stage here, but once you go down and don't spend your money, don't talk to people who doesn't share your bad experience.
exactly. So now you, Nathan, when you look at the blockchain itself, now we go around all the different aspects, because we talk about account identity, come into trust, coming into transaction. So what's going to happen tomorrow? What do you see as the really big challenges, setbacks, when it comes to blockchain? You already mentioned it, like it's paradox, but how do you see it as a real?
I'm going to show you something. I want to show you something. So it is something on screen. I'll show you that. But before that, I just wanted to mention here, blockchains will remain decentralized. The thing to be seen is they are made for a purpose, right? They are there to serve a purpose. They are there for a specific task to be done. Can that be moving to a different model than only decentralized? Can that be on a centralized, or can that be on a distributed model? So what we did for everybody's reference, we just made a quick chart of the 3 models. Centralized, distributed, and decentralized. These are some again illustratively some points. I'm sure the audience will put much more if I put that piece, circulate that piece of paper around. They'll need extra sheets to give me more comparison points. But I just thought I'd list down some because looking at it, how the clients are seeing, there'll be a paradigm shift.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So I can just show you a shift in an illustrative model right now.
Exactly. But there is one very important point, the single point of failure. Because you mentioned it's going to be applicable only on the last cases.
Yes, because that is where, if it's decentralized trust, the challenge is on accountability. Who is accountable there then if there is something wrong? Because if the authority is split, so will the accountability be. In a centralized one, you know that there is a nodal agency who's there controlling it. There is an ombudsperson. I can go there. Here it's split. So accountability is split. So do I go collect all those 5, 7, 10 people? Talk to them. Or can I go and talk to a nodal agency? And that is where I believe, the distributed may just be there, Because this is where I will leave it to Manan to just explain how the UPI payment.
Manan has to.
So, if we talk about centralized, decentralized, and distributed model, see, as Nitin has correctly said that it has to be decentralized at the end of the day. But to whom to catch hold of in terms of fraud, in terms of crime, in terms of accountability. So, a layer has to come in picture. Now, in terms of UPI, that is what the Indian government has done. It is one of the open infrastructure only that the Indian government has built up. And they exactly know from where the money flow has started and where it has landed. So they know the accountability and they can catch hold of it. They can trace the entire piece. Now, this is only just one payment system that the government has implemented or the financial system has implemented. The blockchain in the entire piece or in the entire ecosystem will change this entire journey of accountability. Like today, if I'm taking a loan and I'm defrauding it and just getting lost in the digital world, with the blockchain in place, I might be able, like the people will be able to trace me because of the whereabouts where I am.
100%. Do you see this as decentralization?
Yeah, this is a combination of decentralized, like as we talk about that someone has to plan it. So decentralization, not the correct word although, but that is something that we have to work on.
Okay, are we seeing like authority-based control, policymakers are going to build a new wave of setback? Or are we seeing technology companies, giant companies, with their long history of merger and acquisition are going to also be in control? Are we seeing like what's happened recently? A lot of hackers have been hijacking and they formed what they call it the voting bank for the consensus itself. In a way, the 50% of the way the smart contract work, they get the majority of votes on the blockchain itself. Where we see the setbacks in all those areas.
So up here, see, in terms of, I understand that if we put a regulation on a decentralization, the entire logic gets defeated.
Yeah.
Okay. But again, if we don't control it and leave it only to the private people or the private tech giants out there in the market, the trust building will not come in picture. The chaos will still be there. So instead of the private tech giants controlling this piece, it's always better someone from the public or the government side controlling the entire piece. So that when any of the setbacks happen at large, see, we are not talking about a particular blockchain currency, a Bitcoin or Ethereum or something, wherein a particular person out there in the world makes a command and goes down. You can't make that happen with a currency. You have to keep it stable.
That is what we spoke about. Is it so much volatile? Can some voices just increase or decrease its value? Which is very different from the currency that we currently have.
Okay. Do you see this like a central bank digital currency in the future can be volatile?
I will have my doubts. Because then it puts everything under fluctuation. So I don't know how many people make budget. So I get paid in 10 cryptos, and next day the value will come. So it has to be a digital. If it's that kind of a currency, see how things are currently. Let me take a step back and give you a journey. Everybody had currency notes. Let's look at your travel, right? You came from your country here, took a taxi from the airport to the hotel. Were you able to pay in your native currency or US dollar, or did you have to pay in dirham only?
I use dirham. I can pay any kind of currency.
So till the time everybody in the world adopts that single currency, it may not come into being because locally that is not being used. That is one side of it. The second side of it, once we started traveling, we were using currency notes. Right? Then we moved to chapstick. Now we have moved to cards. Then we move to multi-currency cards. One card, all kind of currencies.
Yeah, this is where the scheme is Masaka.
Everybody is there, right? Tomorrow it will be digital currency. But what shape, what form, how much will this parallelly run? How much will the acceptance be? I don't know. So the Bitcoin that you may buy in your country, I may buy in my country. Will the values be same? The blockchains of that be same? To be honest, I do not have an answer. Maybe some of the people here may have that answer right now. But so there could be a lot of differences before it becomes that uniform currency which which you're talking about.
But Nathan, you mentioned something that I need to intervene on it, because if what he's saying is going to be the way to go, then what we've been seeing in COVID, there is no country in the globe having ready. There is no country, but they adapt. So can we expect a way that will come and enforce the decentralization?
Well, it has to be a tsunami. See, if I talk about back in India again, there happened two events which we were just discussing over lunch as well. There was a demonetization which pushed a consumer to start using digital payments.
Mm-hmm.
Digital payments were there in the market. People were doing branding and marketing and pushing and doing incentives. Everything was done, from the tech giants to government to everyone. But people were only using it to earn incentives, and then they stopped using it. After demonetization, they were forced to use it because there was no way out for it. Now, if I take it forward to the lockdown and the COVID, it has now started pushing businesses to start using digital payments, because now they cannot go and collect cash, they cannot go and collect checks.
But there are certain activities that remain legacy.
Exactly. So, see, at the end of the day, like if today also we talk about blockchain, it's not something which is new. It has been almost for a decade.
Okay.
Now, if it has been there in the market, it has matured itself, it has taken its journey of ups and downs. But to come into mainstream and be that primary usage of choice for the consumers, for the businesses, it will take a tsunami to basically make it adaptable.
Okay, majorly, let us focus on the programmable side of blockchain. So imagine a central bank that is today going to be in control of the population in terms of CBDC. I'm here talking about an ether. Like I'm having my wallet, as I said. I create my wallet in MetaMask, and then I go to Decentralization and I try to do transactions. So in both cases, there are someone who's controlling my identity, my residency, and my transactions. So when we take an address, we trace it. We can know this address, where is the fund coming from, and where it's been used. So now, when it's come to India in specific, do you feel like the hybrid model you mentioned, it's going to be more into giving the power to the customer, like users and companies, or it's going to be a balance where the authority will give all the power across all participants? How you see it's going to come? Or it's going to be central authority control, sort of?
So it is definitely going to be customer-centric, because see, unless you don't give a customer the power to be able to use that effectively and customize and personalize it, he will not start using it. Like today, if you see in terms of, because we are talking about India, if you see in terms of UPI, government has, or the central bank has only created one single layer for the authentication and authorization. That's it. On top of it, you can build n number of use cases. You can use it for food, you can use it for electricity bills, you can use it for bill payments, you can push it for loan payments. So there are multiple use cases which can be pushed out for. They are only controlling the part where the user feels safe, okay, the authorization and the authentication is happening on the central node. It is not something which is being managed or controlled by a private entity. so that my data is secure, my identity is secure. Whatever is the layers are happening on top of it, those are the use cases.
Okay, so you are envisioning like a structure where the entire government it will be distributed, but the different actors who are going to play the role of autonomy are not going to have the authority to make read and writing transactions. They will only orchestrating a view only, or do you think the government of India will also hand over this power to them, so they will play a real decentralized operation? So, because if you talk about centralization, we are talking about the future of Web3 wallets. So, do we see this going to be applicable in India?
So, I'll just take a minute to give you the background behind my answer. Now, if I talk about India again specifically, see, we have a national switch in BCI. Okay. So all the banks are connected to it, and whatever the interbank transaction has to happen happens to NPCI, National Payment Corporation of India. Now, India, if again I go back 10-15 years, didn't have this, the National Payment Corporations of India. Before that, there were combination of many switches which the bank networks were using. So say for an example, there's a group of 5 to 10 banks which has created a switch network, and they were using, okay, so your ATMs, your card network can work only within that. If you have to use it from outside that network, so there's a huge fee and there's a huge transaction processing that has to happen. Now, because of the national switch coming in picture, that has become very easy now. So, bringing in digital currency in India will not be a challenge, but if I see at large, on a global level, there are a lot of countries which don't have a national switch at large, where all the banks are connected. And you can't even do, like say for an example, I know for a case in Kenya, if I have a DTB card, I cannot use it on the INM Bank ATM. But this is not the case in India. So, with central currencies or CBDCs coming in picture, this will take this thing further, because CBDC is all about connecting all the nodes.
Okay, do you see this gonna keep evolving the existing payment networks? I'm talking about networks, I'm talking about the schemes. So, or do you see this going to be controlled by the government to decide who's going to be part of that decentralized, localized version of the transaction itself?
So see, with CBDC, there's no choice. You have to be a part of it. Like in India, if today I go and apply for a banking license, I have to be a part of NPCI. I don't have a choice whether I want to be or not. That's how my system will function. That's how I get an authorization from the central bank. So, it is inevitable that you have to be a part of that central agency or central bank, so that the entire layout can happen and the implementation to the masses can happen. Like we are talking about financial inclusion, we are talking about digital inclusion, I would say.
Okay, so how do you clients?
I totally agree. Where I just wanted to add on, where I believe the role of the government would come in, will be more towards an enabler, getting that charter in there, having your regulatory compliances, having your regular other compliances. It's more to see things are on track. They will prefer to make the 4 boundaries.
Okay.
Right? You can play within those 4 boundaries. Anybody can play within those 4 boundaries.
So you are expecting, Nathan, that we will be living a life where we will see the decentralized operation that will be involving different actors who will play those roles, but in a more controlled, not deliberate way.
Yes, because there has to be authenticity of those, where you have to take over the uncertainty away. And that is where the role the government will have to just come and play.
But if the government has a say of any company or any actor, participant on the network itself, then there is still control of.
Right now you have so many private banks, you have so many private wallets. You are free to use which one you want to use. So they have to follow that charter from the government, right? And I know once they have the approval from the government, they have a seal of authenticity. But otherwise, I am free to use any wallet, I am free to use any bank, I am free to use a Visa or a MasterCard on the Indian market. There is no restriction on that.
I just want to add what Nitin has said. If I talk about UPI in India, the NPCI has just laid out the guidelines. What are the implementation parameters? There are over 200 mobile apps through which you can use UPI. I can link my single account to 10 different applications and create 10 different virtual IDs, distribute it between my network, and all the money will still land to the same account.
Okay, does this mean that all of these participants are going to have their own validation, or they are going to have only an interface from an implementation perspective?
See, in terms of implementation, it is more on the use cases that would come in picture. Authentication and authorization would still remain on the central part of it.
So if you look at it well, we are going to use the blockchain technology, but in a more it will comply in one level with the regulatory requirement. The second part is more building a trust between the participants because they are all controlled. And the third level will be use cases that will involve the companies and the customers. And they are all going to be under the same decentralized sort of government operation, right?
Like, if I just can add an example, we are all here today for the event. Now, without the organizers, we'll just be roaming around.
And we are doing different sessions.
Exactly. So, we are coming into a conclusion. What do you foresee the future?
Bitcoins, decentralization, fintech, all this is future. This, we will be moving towards a very different world. If I take a step back, Morgan Rachel said she doesn't has a wallet, right? She has a wallet, but that's now not digital, right? All your documents which you were earlier carrying with you, now you carry in a DigiLocker, right? So what we have done is basically squeeze the multiple folders into a device called phone. Okay, right? And you will use it to do anything. Apple went a step ahead and said, don't even take the phone, just take your watch. So tomorrow I think it may be in my classes because this is something without which I cannot go outside the house. So maybe the technology gets built, it's retina based. I don't know, maybe I'll pay through my retina tomorrow.
So I agree to what Nitin has concluded that a lot of things is inevitable. The technology of blockchain is going to come sooner or later. It's only the way that it can be implemented for the betterment of the entire mass and towards the digital inclusion.
I understand. And for one conclusion related to our colleague, the other Daniel who was supposed to be with us, he mentioned the idea about the future, that we are having a concept called forging. So what's happened in the early stage of deployments of Ethereum network, there was some kind of violation that happened because of the bind voting. Bind voting is a mechanism that will allow you to mobilize a certain number of people, so they will buy the right of vote. So this will allow the network itself to be hijacked, and he mentioned it. So I just want to put one more note. He mentioned about the idea of the size, that today the network itself is growing, and Ethereum has reached already 1 tera size. So blockchain cannot be able to carry over the capability when it comes to global scale. So we are now envisioning multi-layers of limitations, and as you can see, we have seen a lot of frauds happening, scams are happening. So without the involvement of authority, policymakers, there are a lot of vulnerabilities that business has to consider. Thank you.
I think it's to the three of you. I just wanted to understand, like, in order to solve the problem of financial inclusion, do you think that CBDCs is the right way out when it's being promoted by the government, it's being regulated by the government, or do you think private currency or a stable coin is the way out because of the interoperability it could potentially offer. So, and possibly preempting your answer, if it is a CBDC, how do you think we're going to be using it across different countries? Like you just took the example when you took taxi in the morning, how do you pay? You pay in dirhams, but even if you implement a CBDC, that's not going to be able to, you still got to use it in Dubai because it's going to be implemented by the Indian government back in India on their platform. So just your thoughts, how do you think, and it's an open question about the future and how do you think it's going to take place, whether it's going to be CBDC driven or it's going to be more stable coin driven rather than private coins like Bitcoin. Thank you.
I can say this is my perspective. So I start with the limitation first. It will be under the regulatory model. It's difficult to just leave it to the private players because it's highly volatile. Today, Elon Musk makes a statement, it goes up and down. There is a rumor in India that these XYZ celebrities have bought. The market goes up. I don't think that even the government or the users even want that much of a volatile market to happen. If that remains, I think then it's more akin to a betting. I put in and I see, let me see what happens. There will be some players who would want to do that, but I don't think government would actually want that to happen. So it would want it to remain stable. On the second part, on the interoperability of that, it will go the same way as the currency is going. Because if India comes with one, I'm sure China will come with one, Russia will come with one, UAE will come with one, US will come with one. It may be phase 2 to get them all on the current platform and on a similar platform. But it's been so many years we have not been able to get the currency on a similar platform, though we have been using US dollars as a benchmark. Yes, there may be a benchmark tomorrow. You may be able to carry that digital currency, but how shape and form it will take, I think it will go back to my mind in the same QR code format which we are currently in. I don't think I can use my QR codes, which are based on wallets in India to pay anywhere abroad as of now. But it may happen. So I may not be able. I don't think I'll be coming with a passport or with a wallet. I can just take my phone and keep walking to the country that I want to, definitely with a visa paper in hand. But I will not be needing either a passport tomorrow, I will not be needing to carry a different currency. It can be done through those QR codes. So the QR codes may become multi-currency there, which we have the cards today again. I never imagined I'll be able to tap my card and go away. I always thought that the security in the card lies in the OTP and lies in the PIN. Today we have taken a step over that. Definitely we can set our limits. There are positives and there are negatives to that. So I believe maybe that's the future where your QR codes having the multi-currency may be the future. Your thoughts?
Even what Nitin has said, just that the way valuation or the evolution of currency parity has happened over years. The similar way the digital currency parity would happen towards the global side. Once everybody has that same thing on the platter, I'm sure they could find a way to make it work globally.
Fantastic panel, guys.